Hi, everyone. Morning. Oh, wow. Are we not excited? Hello, morning. Ladies normally get all giddy when we're talking about love. Am I right or am I right? Yeah, so we should be a bit excited. The theme of today is love and relationships. My name is Rolake Akinkugbe Filani. I'm a host of Business Week on Arise News, amongst a host of other roles that I fulfill in this life. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a corporate executive, I work in financial services, but I also host a Saturday business program on Arise called Business Week from 10 to 11. So I was coming from there here. So lovely to be invited here. I first of all want to thank the leadership of this beautiful assembly. Thank you so much. Pastor Odukoya, Dr. Toby Onua, to all the leaders in the house, I'm really, really grateful to be here. It's a real privilege every time I get to speak to women. So without further ado, the theme for today, we've heard Discovery for Women, it's Woman, You're Enough. Now we're drilling down into love and relationships, and we're drilling down even more into how we love and what influences it. Have any of you ever given thought to why you love the way you do? Can I get a show of hands? If there are people here, if you know why you love the way you do, raise. Yeah. And we've probably read a lot of books and material, am I right? Yeah? How many of you have read the love languages? Let's even start from there, which is almost universal. Right. Okay, if you're an acts of service type of person, please raise up your hand. Okay. If you're a words of affirmation type of person, okay. If you're a gifts, I know, Niger woman. If you're a touch, okay, you're everything. And there's one more. Time, quality time. Yeah, we're going to spend some quality time here today. But what we're going to do today, we're going beyond just the love languages. Because if you see it time and time again, the way we love is usually how we like to be loved. Am I right? And so we've got two amazing speakers here today. One of them isn't here yet, but she will join us. One needs no introduction, but we have to introduce her small. So make her feel really loved and welcome. She's going to talk to us for about 20 minutes. And then we'll also have our other speakers speak to us for about 20 minutes, after which we'll go into about 30 minutes of discussion time, and then you'll get to ask questions. But I want you to please do 2 or 3 things here. First of all, open your heart and open your mind. Everything that you've thought you've always known about love, just park it aside for the duration of the next 1 hour and a half. Because we're hearing from an expert, right? And she's a clinical psychologist. So it's not just by the love languages that she's learned it. She's gone to school. She's spent time. She's done the work and she's passed the exam. So please do that. Open heart and open mind. That's the first task. The second task is really, if there's one takeaway for each of you today, if it's just one thing you register and you resolve in your heart and your spirit that when you leave this place today, you will take action on it, please do so and please write it down. Is that an agreement? We have an agreement. And finally, just ask the Holy Spirit for grace to receive. Some of the things you hear may be difficult. They may challenge what you've always known all of your life. They may challenge your own beliefs or what people have told you. So ask for the Spirit and grace to receive that which is spoken. As the speakers come, they will be giving utterance in the mighty name of Jesus. So without further ado, I want to introduce none other than the little but larger than life, Dr. Toby Onua, to come and open the session for us. Please, you can do better than that. A round of applause. And she looks absolutely stunning. Looking forward to receiving from you, Dr. Toby. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. Just for my husband's sake, my name is Dr. Toby Enuha. Yes, but I'm really glad to be here. I'm going to dive into it because I have 20 minutes. And like my husband said, you're preparing like you're going for a dissertation and you have 20 minutes. So I want to make sure that I get as much as I can out today, and I hope that you will be blessed by it. So let's just go into it. So, some of you may know When Harry Met Sally, the movie. How many people have heard When Harry Met Sally, the movie? Or how many people know of any of the Jane Austen novels, Pride and Prejudice? Probably watched it. Yeah, so I'm talking about these things because these stories are based on what popular culture defines love to be. And that's based on the romantic view of love. Romance. You know, when we hear about romance, our hearts, we're so smiley and giggly. And in the romantic view of love, love is a feeling. It's an instinct. When you meet the person that you're going to be with, there's an attraction there, and naturally you gravitate to one another. And you know, people say, I just know it in my heart that he's the one for me. I just feel it. There's just something about this one that's different. And that's the romantic view of love. And in the romantic view of love, your partner is meant to be quite intuitive. I don't need to tell you what I want. You should just know it. That's how you show you love me. And some people will tell their friends, they'll be like, I wasn't even like asking, and he just showed up with a bouquet of flowers and chocolates. Like, how did he know? That's what we expect love to be. And in the romantic view of love, he should love you flaws and all. If he expects you to change, then there's something wrong with him. I'm sure we have been those friends that will say, if he's asking you to change, please run, no. Why are you still there? He wants you to change. You are perfect. That's the romantic view of love. And in that view, loving right is all about choosing the right partner. And once you do, everything should flow naturally. And if you're married, I'm sure you're laughing on the inside because you know that's not true, even when you pick the person that is right for you. And what I want to do today is I want to share a psychology point of view on love based on research and clinical experience of what people before me and other psychologists have kind of found about love when they interact with people. Is that okay? So one idea we have is that love is not an instinct, it's not a feeling. It's actually something that we are taught. No one is born knowing how to love. You didn't come into this world knowing exactly how to love. And the person that teaches you how to love are the persons or people that raised you. That's how you learn how to love. And when we talk about love, we're talking about two distinct yet connected modes. To be loved and loving. Those are two different things, but they influence each other. Are you still with me? So the first display of love you have growing up might be a combination of healthy experiences that you remember, maybe some not so healthy experiences, or somewhere in the middle. Some of you, when you imagine your childhood, you might remember your mom's warmth, the way she cared for you, the way she nurtured you, the way she was there when you were crying. And some of you, you don't have such a good experience about what it was like growing up. Some of you may remember your parents as being a bit punitive or cold or distant. We all have different experiences with the people that raised us. And so it's no surprise here that we all have very varied feelings around intimacy and closeness. Some of you love to be intimate and close. You feel it, you crave it, you gravitate towards it. You're the ones that snuggle up to your partners. And some of you, you're like, don't touch me. I don't like to be hugged. It's not, no, it's not nice. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing too much? We all have very different comfortabilities around intimacy and closeness. And I want to share some school of thoughts around that. So all of us as psychologists, we all believe that as adults, you all have a template of how to love that you developed when you were children. And part of that, as you experience life, met people, you also gain skills and things that you've adapted in terms of how you love. But I want to tell you about two different schools of thoughts about how that shows up in your relationships. The first is a school of thought that we call psychoanalysis. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. But in this school of thought, we don't fall in love first and foremost with the people who will care for us in ideal ways. We fall in love with those who will care for us in familiar ways. So we tend to privilege familiarity over happiness. And that's why you may find that people might sometimes reject a boyfriend because they're just too right. They're too balanced. They're too understanding. They're goody two-shoes. I'm sure some of you have said, that one is too good. It's too good. I need drama. I need excitement. He's too boring. And that often is speaking to the fact that when you see someone that's reliable and understanding and balanced, it doesn't give you the up and downs of emotional highs and lows that you're used to. And so it's not exciting for you, and so you reject those people. And in this school of thought, what we do unconsciously is that we're trying to reenact or replay what it was like growing up with our parents. And so we try to seek that out in our relationships because we're hoping to either heal from them, master them, or understand them. So we think we're trying to gravitate towards somebody because they're going to love us right, but actually we're trying to gravitate towards somebody because they're going to love us in the ways that we're familiar with. So that's one school of thought. Are you still with me? Have I lost you guys yet? Okay. The other school of thought is what we call attachment theory. And what happened was a bunch of psychologists came together and they were watching children play with their parents. And they noticed that there were different ways that children reacted when their parents left and came back. And they were thinking, what's that about? And the more they looked into that, they realized that depending on the way your parents loved you, it was kind of easy to determine how you were going to react in different relationships. It was predetermined. It was so predetermined that they could predict when you're in a relationship how you were going to be with your partner. And so they call that attachment styles. And so they believe that we all of you sitting here today, have an attachment style. Some of you will say you're secure. You have a secure attachment style. And some of you, we might say you have an anxious attachment style. And some of you, we might say you have an avoidant attachment style. What does that all mean? Yeah, let's talk about that a bit. So what they found was, if you grew up in a family or household where your parents were warm and nurturing, they listened to your needs, they were responsive to you, then you developed what they called a secure attachment style. So you feel comfortable with intimacy. You don't get anxious about relationships or your partner's ability to love you back. And you're able to communicate your needs to your partner. But then they noticed if you grew up in a household where your parents were inconsistent with their care. So sometimes they were loving and they were great, but other times they just switched up on you and they were punitive and they were cold. And they didn't really they were not really sensitive to your needs. They found that those children who had to live with mixed kind of signals, they were the ones that kind of developed an anxious attachment style because they couldn't really rely or trust that their parents would meet their needs all the time. And so them in relationships, they crave intimacy, they crave closeness, but they are quite notably insecure about the relationship and where it's going. And they're also very sensitive to their behaviors. Every little thing might be a sign that their partner might want to end the relationship. And so these are the people that if you don't call them back, they start getting anxious, and they think it's something that they have done. So they might call you over and over and over again, text you, text your mother, text your cousin, text your friend. Have you seen Jide? I haven't seen him. Where has he gone? You know, those are the anxious ones. Or they're the ones that if you say, oh, let's go out, and you say, oh, not today, love. I don't really want to go out today. Say, why? Is this something I did? You don't actually take me out. We never go out. Why? Are you not proud of who I am? You don't want your friends to know who I am? So every little thing that their partner does, they're really sensitive to that to see if it might be an indicator that they don't love them as much or they want to end the relationship. And then they also found that for caregivers who were strict and emotionally distant, did not tolerate the expression of feelings and expected their children right from the start to be independent and tough, they raised children that then became known as having an avoidant attachment style. These ones, they don't like intimacy and closeness. And for them, what they value over relationship is their freedom and their independence. And so every time they're talking to you, what they're negotiating is, how much of myself do I have to give for this person? So initially, at the beginning, they're there and they're loving, and then all of a sudden, they're like pulling back. You say, oh, can we hang out today? Oh, not really, I'm quite busy, maybe another time. And then when they're with you, they're fully there with you. but they value their intimacy more than the relationship. And they don't really care about if or not that makes you feel. So they're the ones that say, my boundaries are my boundaries. You either respect them or you don't. And they don't really care about how that would leave you feeling. And we call that the avoidance attachment style. So these are two different schools of thoughts. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it doesn't mean that it would apply to everyone. It's just different ways that psychologists have found that people love. And so what they summarize is that when we love, we're two individuals coming together, colored by our history. And if we're not aware of that, you and your partners will be fighting battles that you never started, and you don't even understand why those battles were there to begin with. And there's an expectation that even though they didn't start the battle, they should be able to end the war. And it can be very difficult. And so what I want to leave you with now, because I really want this to be practical, is a man known as Alan de Boston, who is the author of The School of Life. He's come up with what he describes as 5 emotional skills, regardless of your history, that can help us love better and to be able to communicate how we want to be loved. So I want to share these 5 skills with you, but with each skill, I'm either going to leave you with a prompt, something that you can go out and try on your own, or a question for you to reflect on about yourself. Is that okay? Okay. Well, okay, how am I doing for time, sis? Okay. So the first one is non-defensiveness. Having a mutual non-defensive readiness to admit to imperfections. To be able to say, I understand that in my mind, I think I'm great, but there are some things about me that are not great. One of the therapists that I really love, her name is Esther Perel. She says, you knowing everything you know about yourself, would you want to live with you? And some people might say yes, but if you're being completely honest, you knowing everything you know about yourself, would you want to live with you? So this is the prompt I have to begin to develop a skill of non-defensiveness. Ask a trusted and kind friend, trusted and kind friend, to say one critical thing about you and note your emotions. Notice what arises in you when they say that, whether possibly signs of hurt or outrage or fear, and dare to ask them for further information and to trust that your friend does not suddenly mysteriously hate you. And that's an exercise I want you to try, because it's going to help you see how much you are able to take in, no, I won't say criticism, because we do tend to try to hear things that people say they don't like about us as criticisms, but being able to make room for what your imperfections are. Yeah? So the next skill that he talks about is vulnerability. A willingness to let ourselves be vulnerable, to be able to communicate our needs effectively. And this is another prompt I have for you. What might you be embarrassed to admit to a partner, whether around money, sex, politics, personal habits, tastes, regrets? And be as frank as possible, but just say internally, I'm asking you now to try this. What might be one embarrassing thing that you're able to admit to a partner? And when you have that thing, with care and courage, choose a friend at your own time to make this confession to. And this is just a little exercise to get you to start practicing how to be a bit more vulnerable with the people that you care about and the people that you trust. The next emotional skill is tenderness. And I want to just sit here on tenderness, because there's something about our culture in Nigeria, the survival of the ones that are hot. If you want to get ahead in life, in school, in uni, and work, even at home with your house helps and people that help you, you have to be hard. Because if you're not hard, you are creating room for disrespect. So tenderness is not a skill that we're used to or that we allow ourselves to feel, because we feel that when we are tender, we are... Did you see how I didn't You guys all just say it louder. When we're tender, we are. There you go. So that is an unconscious belief that we all have. But actually, to love, there has to be a part of us that can be tender. And when we talk about tenderness, it's a generous, compassionate response to ours and our partner's flaws and errors. And so here is another prompt for you to try to allow yourself to be a little bit more tender. And let's try this one, because you don't need a friend for this one. So I want you all to think of something a person might do that would seriously offend you. Maybe they tell a lie, they betray you, they cheat on you. Something that will seriously offend you. I'll give you a moment to do that. When you have something in mind, just raise your hand up so I know. Don't worry, I'm not going to call you out. So you can raise your hand up. Something a person can do that will seriously offend you. Yeah? Are some people struggling to find a thing? I'm surprised. Because anger is one of the emotions that we easily feel. Okay. So most people have one, right? Okay. Now, what I want you to do is ask yourself, what would be the kindest explanation you can give to that person's conduct? If you had to give the kindest explanation as to why that person has done that thing to offend you, what would that be? I must tell you, I'm looking at your faces, and just getting you all to think of the kindest explanation, I'm seeing smiles. I'm seeing people laugh. Perhaps maybe because some of you are thinking there's no kind explanation. But what I'm trying to do is to get you to shift your perspective into another view of the person that allows you to develop compassion for the person, even in the midst of anger or difficult emotions towards that person. Because when you're in a relationship, while you might love a person, they will definitely do things to you that would ignite in you difficult emotions that may be contradictory to the idea of loving a person. I think one of the things that my sister always says that is funny, she's like, I can love you, but I don't like you. It's possible to love you, but I don't like you. Yeah? So to develop that sense of tenderness is the ability to be able to give a compassionate response to people's flaws and errors. The fourth one, we're almost there, is to have a therapeutic attitude towards how our histories show up in our relationships. So to remember that when you are standing in front of your partner, you're not just the only one standing there. You are there. The people who raised you, their voices, the way that they have imprinted on you are there as well. So a lot of times when you're reacting, it's important to ask yourself, where is this reaction coming from? A lot of times, people from the outside, they were like, I know he did something bad, but boy, did you see the way she reacted? I didn't think it matched what the person did. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to you, but to them, they're not just reacting to what the person did. They're reacting to what the person did that has triggered the templates of love they have in their minds. So here are two questions you can ask yourself at your own time, reflectively, to help you begin to develop that therapeutic attitude towards our history. Is how have your assumptions about other people in general been unfairly colored by the experiences with other people in your earlier years? How have the assumptions about other people in general been unfairly colored by the experiences of other people in your earlier years? Another reflection question for you is, and this might be a tough one, what scars has the past left on your adult personality? Because nobody just comes out of an island. So everything about who you are is because of what has happened to you. And so as psychologists, we don't ask the question, why are you like this? We ask, what has happened to you that has resulted to you being this way? All right? And the last one, enthusiasm, a sufficient lack of anger to keep admiration alive. A sufficient lack of anger to keep admiration alive. And for this one, I'll just give you one thing to think about. Imagine gently explaining to someone that they have made you feel sad or angry. How does that make you feel? When you're able to truly express how you feel to someone, how does that make you feel? Because what keeps enthusiasm and a sufficient lack of anger alive in our relationship is our ability to express our feelings and our needs to the people that we care about. Because when we don't do that, that builds what? Hey, you guys are awesome. That builds resentment. It builds resentment. And I said because I've run over by 1 minute and 18 seconds. So I'm going to stop here. And I hope that was helpful in some ways. Thank you.
I think she deserves an even more rapturous round of applause. Fantastic stuff. You gave me a lot of food for thought. Those were really, really great. You see what I told you? Actionable points. And I'm pretty positive there are aspects of that that will resonate with everybody here. I want to ask maybe one or two people to just briefly share, out of all the things that Dr. Toby said, one or two things that really stood out to you and why. You don't have to unveil your entire life to us, but just give us, please just come out quickly so that we can see you.
Hi, everyone. One thing that really stood out to me that I have been thinking about prior to her saying it, that just gave me confirmation, was
move the mic closer
when
to
a
your mouth.
person does something to you, offends you, kind of think about the reason behind their action and be compassionate towards what that reason could be. A lot of people don't offend you intentionally. They're not going out of your way to, annoy you or hurt you. There's always a reason behind it. So just being compassionate towards that reason allows for us to be more forgiving, generally.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. What's your name?
My name is Juwon.
Juwon. Oh, thank you so much, Juwon. Very interesting. And there's even a biblical principle towards that. It may sound a bit extreme, but where the Bible talks about the fact that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities of power. In my Christian walk, I've discovered that usually there's a spirit behind everything. So it's not the human being you're fighting. It's usually what lies behind that. That's awesome. And we have our second guest speaker, the amazing, our mother in the house, who came despite her very busy schedule. So good to see you, Ma. You're welcome. She needs no introduction. Should we give you a minute to just catch your breath? We're pretty much ready for you, actually. So please give Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, known as Pastor Blessing, to some people. Lovely to see you. Thank you. Toby has done hers. So
Fantastic. Just perfect timing. I'm running between two chairs today, but it's all good. Sorry I missed your session. Really wanted to listen. Okay, love and relationships. So, I'm sure you're wondering, how is she on this topic? But this is Pastor Tolu's magic. A miracle, and she decided, let's play everybody in different other sides. I'm a master at it. Okay, it is well. Okay, so, frankly, where I would like to start, and I know Toby is brilliant in terms of she's PhD in her field, you know that, and a lot of technical knowledge that would help you how to think straight that. So I'm sure that foundation has been laid. So where I want to take you is in terms of, look at what are the kind of relationships in your life. Because frankly, you can tie love and relationship to our success in life. Your ability to manage relationships, every kind of it, The nurturing of relationships and our love relationships builds us, the kind of human being that we are. And it does impact our ability to succeed in life. If you're not good at managing relationships, you can't go far because you can't relate with people. And you have to deal with every kind of person in the course of your life. So we have some love relationships that we don't control. You didn't choose your father or your mother. So the wisdom there is don't fight them because you didn't choose that. And you can't blame yourself for who they are. Your responsibility is how do you work with what you have in order to achieve what you need to. So where is the guidance we get from the word of God there? Honor your father and your mother. That means work with the parents in your life or the adults in your life with respect and honor. Why? Because if you're smart, you want the word of God to work for you. And if the Bible says honor your father and your mother, that's the blessing you're targeting. So that affects how you relate to those relationships. Your siblings, you didn't choose them. They didn't choose each other. God made the choice by choosing the father and the mother that gave birth to them and produced who they are. At the end, you have to learn how to love your siblings. Sometimes you want to kill your siblings, you know that. You know, they're the ones that drive you crazy, that you really just want to get out of the way. But they are your siblings. You have to work out how you live with them successfully and how your love relationship with them works for you or not. If it doesn't, you decide how it can be healthy for you to work at it. I'll give you an example. My immediate older brother is just a spoiled brat. No missing words. You know, we're raised in the same house. We had the same opportunities and all of that. But you know this my son thing. You know, my mother had one son. She had 2 boys. One died, leaving 1 son and 4 girls. And so that's her 1 son. We always said to her, we know you can sell all of us just for your 1 son. No, that's how the girls, that was our mindset. But worked against him, toughened us. Because he was just indulged and got away with so much. And I think at the end, he messed up his life. Because that indulgence didn't serve him well. But you know how your mother will say, hey, you know, you should do this for your brother. You should do this. One day, I decided I was tired of throwing water in the basket. And said, yeah, you're my brother. Can't deny that. But you're going to do more harm to my life than good. And at this point, I've got to draw the line of, you must learn when you need to define boundaries in your relationships, even with those that are. It's natural love situation. You didn't choose it, but you have to live with it. So I decided that, you know, this is going to hurt me on the long run. And I'd made enough wasted investment in that relationship that to protect me, I had to make a decision to fight for me. And in doing that, I just decided, I'm done. I'm not doing this. So if I'm going to help, I help with my head. So right now, I can make investments in his children so that my children don't have to deal with his children's problem in future. I'm being strategic. I'm just being honest with you about how do you deal. But, you know, he doesn't have the everyday access he should have as my brother into my life anymore. Because at a point, I chose to fight and protect me. So you have to understand those are relationships you don't have a choice. Uncles, aunties, they're family relationships. But you can choose how you love and you engage. You see the ones that work and serve the call of God and the purpose of God in your life. There's some that, when the Bible says, oh, no man, nothing but love, you're just going to be, good morning, sir. How are you, sir? But you're not stopping. You know, good morning, sir. How are you, sir? Thank you, and you're going. You know, because you know that that relationship, if you put much more into it, it's going to get into your heart, your emotions, and it will hurt you. So you create the, oh, no man, nothing but love, but you do not open the door for voices and access into your life to cause you pain. Now, come to the ones that you guys get more fascinated by. The boy loves girl, girl loves boy. That one you control. You have a choice. That's the place where everything that you are comes into play. And this is a more consequential relationship in your life at a stage of your life. So now you're a big girl. Yeah, whatever. 20, 21, 20, whatever. And now you think, oh, boyfriend, girlfriend, and all of that. Now, even say from teenage. But ask yourself, what do you want out of it? how does it work for you? The question I always ask young women is, first and foremost, don't seek that relationship until you have a sense of who you are. I understand what I mean by that. If you don't know who you are, how do you know who is the right person for you? You need to invest some time in figuring, who am I? Where am I going to? What do I consider important to me? What are the values with which I want to live my life? What kind of a man do I want in my life? Do I just want a man? What role is this man going to play? Where am I going? What man fits where I'm going? There are husbands and there are men available, but there's a right man and a right husband for you. So when you get into the place of love and building relationships that you know will impact your life, the most dangerous relationship you have is that one. Why? Because it affects your emotions and everything. Your intellect is betrayed by it. Because you see, the most intelligent, rational woman becomes unreasonable and irrational when it comes to a love relationship. So if you allow yourself some time to evolve, to understand who you are, to understand where you want to go, to have a sense of what your goals are, when a guy is talking to you, he can be rich and handsome. That's his problem. Why? You can be rich too. Remember? Don't ever forget that. Oh, he has money. You can have money too. And it doesn't matter how rich he is, or how handsome he is, or how career conscious he is. If he's the wrong person for you, it will destroy everything that you are. What you think he has will not bring you joy. It will not bring you satisfaction. And there's one place in your life you're allowed to be selfish. It's in matters of love and relationship. You must first sort yourself out. So that when you are checking option A, option B, you can decide, this one. Okay, let me give you some. Are we recording? Okay. So when I was a young girl, so there was a guy that wanted to marry me, that he was a dentist in the army. The dentist part is good. The guy is good. Nice guy, loved me, I could get away with anything. But I did not envision myself as the wife of a soldier. Because of why? I'd already figured out that military men, even though they are married, they post them from city to city. And as they move from city to city, what do? They plant seeds. Work it out. So once they plant seeds, that's a permanent problem of the future that I'll have to deal with. That was not part of my vision for myself. So I looked the guy in the eye and told him, oh, sorry. My father would not let me marry you. That was just my excuse. And I got myself away from that. Then there was another guy that I really liked. But handsome, very nice looking. He was in the diplomatic service. But his mother was wealthy and she was in control. And there were two reasons that he was wrong. One, I did not want to be a diplomat's wife. Why? The wife of diplomats don't have career. This is the truth. If your husband is in a posting, it's either you live apart because you want to follow your career, or if your husband is in a posting and the wife follows you, she can only work for that embassy, doing whatever kind of job they have. So she has to give up her life for that. I knew I wanted to make something of my life. So that understanding and the fact that this powerful mother was going to control everything, there were two things that said to me, handsome, nice guy, but could it work? Can't work. So I consciously got myself out of it. Eventually, as you can see. In fact, let me tell you, then at a point, I thought I was so crazily in love with this other guy. But he messed up. And when he did, when I started dating my husband, this guy came back and said, oh, no, I want to marry you. And I said, never. Why did I say never? This was the guy I thought I was crazily in love with. Why did I say never? Because I realized I'll always feel like a second best. I'll always be insecure in that relationship. And I was not going to do that to myself. And I remember someone that I respected saying to me, you know, why are you going to leave the guy you know for someone that just came along? I said, this one, is he related to me? He too came along one day. So I'm going to take my chance on this relationship. I've been married to that came along guy for 34 years. And I have prospered being married to him. So what am I saying to you? Your responsibility about your love is bigger than you think. It's bigger than your white dress and fancy dress. It's bigger than your hashtag. It's more important that you understand that that one decision will break or make your life. Your spouse is a key success factor in your life. And therefore, you have a responsibility to ensure that you check the guy out for the right reasons. What are the good things you should consider? A man who fears the Lord. Why is it important that a man who fears the Lord? It's not that a man will not be tempted. It's that a man that fears God will not do some things because of God. Joseph did not sleep with Potiphar's wife, not because he didn't find her attractive or because of Potiphar. Remember what he said. I will not commit this sin against who? Against the God of the heavens. God was his check. Men are tested every day. You are tested every day. If you think because you're a married woman, if you are married, men will not chase you, ask us now. Some men are badly behaved. The more married you are, the more powerful you are, the more attractive you are to them. Because they want to be able to tell their friends, I conquered that powerful woman. So it's a game to them. But what will keep your husband in check? The fear of God. So a man who fears the Lord, not a man who goes to church. Don't mix them up. Many people go to church that don't fear God, though. So it's your responsibility to explore, to try and determine that he fears God. A man who is disciplined and responsible. It is his discipline as a person that will keep him away from certain trials and temptations. A man who is responsible. I didn't say a man who is rich. I said a man who is responsible. What does that mean? The man who is responsible will put the best of what he has on the table. He would be available to support, to nurture, and to build his household. Now, it's possible that a woman, by the nature of the work she does, will earn more than her husband. If a good career man in high position in an FMCG company, you know, like a Cadbury, a Nestle, and all of that, and the girl happens to be working in Shell or Chevron or something, by the nature of their industry, their pay is already different. They can be peers in level. In fact, the guy might have a higher position in his FMCG company and the girl a lower position, but her pay might be more than his. So we're not talking about money. So in this case, if the man is responsible and he puts the best of what he has on the table, even you as a woman will understand that you are a team. There's a reason the Bible says 1 + 1 is 1. It's because the two is one. It doesn't matter from which end the Lord puts the money on your table. He puts it on the table of your union, and you will use it for the welfare of your household. So you must also know that the man has the capacity to encompass and to cope with the fact that you will earn more. Determine his state of heart. And in trying to do that, check his family setting. Understand, you know, my mother was always home at 3:30. He needs to go and marry a teacher who has no job. Because even teachers don't get home at 3:30 now. Do you understand what I'm saying? And after they finish, they'll go and do lesson because they want to make money. So there are real considerations you must check. The character of the man, the nature of the man, his values, the things that are important to him, his ability to stand with you in your days of trial, his comfort level with your ambition. Now, do not be one of those women that in order to marry a guy, you play yourself down. If you play down, and the man doesn't catch up, it's not his fault, too. Because what you presented to him is you down. If you now marry and you come up, it's a different scenario. So you were fake. You deceived him. It's on you. But be all of yourself. Be comfortable with yourself. Let the man who sees all of you be comfortable with who you are and know that he has capacity to cope with that. Let me tell you a story to wrap that up. I don't know what I'm doing for time. How many more minutes do I have? 3 minutes. Okay. So I'll tell you the story of this friend of mine. Smart, brilliant, ambitious, driven, and all of that. Career driven. She was in her career and all of that, and she'd done well. And by this time, she was like 44. She wasn't married yet. And you know what? She decided she wanted to buy a property. She could afford it. So she bought this big property in Lekki. And everybody said, how can you do that? You're not married yet. You'll never marry. Blah, 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 blah. She didn't care. She could afford it. She wanted it. She bought it. And she moved into the house and lived in it. Not that she bought it as investment. She bought it to live in. So when they told her she would not marry, guess what happened? She married the guy with the bigger house that lived across the road. She would never have met him except she moved into that house. And she met him. His wife died in a plane crash. And they met and things happened. You know what? Be true to yourself. Present the best of yourself. Let the husband that is made for you, let the love that will support you, that will encourage you, that will nurture you, that will allow you the freedom of expression of the gifts of God in your life. Let that be the love that you invest in. Don't ever feel compelled to sell yourself short or to just settle because you think everybody thinks it's time. There's a time. All the time belongs to God. And nothing works better than if you marry at 25 and you are divorced at 30, what have you gained? If you marry at 40 and you live till 80 and you're happily married, you have gained everything. So in love and relationships is about you making the right choices. It's about you understanding what is the will of God and the purpose of God. The gifts of God in your life, they are of God. They were meant to be used, not to be hidden. If God felt they would harm you in getting married, he won't give them to you. So it's like trying to cap me in a bottle. Is that possible? But I had to marry the guy who grew with every growth of my life. Every day I'm grateful for the difference my husband makes in my life because he has the capacity to allow me to be free. I don't feel I have to pretend to be anything. And that has allowed me to serve the Lord and to bless humanity with the gifts of God in my life. Your love and your relationships are critical to everything you will do. In business, the way you nurture them. At home, it will determine everything else, and it can destroy or make everything else possible. May the Lord help us. Sure.
Wow. Another round of applause. You know, the Bible says wisdom is profitable to direct. Indeed, we've heard a lot. So we're going to go into a session of Q&A, a brief session, because I know Mrs. Aoshika has to run off. So I'm going to call back Dr. Toby and Mrs. Aoshika to please take the stage. Oh, yeah, actually, sit in the middle. I'll sit on the end so that you two are together. And okay. So the first question I have for Dr. Toby is, a lot of what you taught and those action points, a lot of them had to do with the past. So my question for you, from a relationship perspective, how much should you disclose to the other person about your past? And Ms. Aoshika, if you want to wade into this as well, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But, you know, you talked about giving them grace, understanding, giving yourself grace, and knowing that you're a sum of everything that has happened to you. But, you know, where do you kind of draw the line?
Hello? When you say draw the line, just for clarity, in terms of how much you disclose, or how much you rely on your past and how it influences
how much you
your
disclose to the other person. So let's take the context of a potential marriage or a romantic relationship. Yeah. We know trust is the currency of relationships. Should you disclose every single thing about what happened to you, what happened in childhood, your trauma, all of that, your past relationships?
Yeah. So, I mean, there is such a thing as over-disclosing, right? One of the things that we often say is when you meet someone, you have to, for lack of a better word, test what they do with the information that you give them. So when you meet someone, you start out dating, you do the surface things first, what you do, what's your work, you know. But the way we are as human beings, even when we try to hide things about ourselves that we think are imperfections or flaws, the way that the mind works is that unconsciously they would start slipping out little by little. Initially, he might come a bit late and you're like, and they're like, it's okay, you know? So you cannot completely hide who you are. Your mind does not have the capacity to do that. It would always slip out little by little. But what we often say is, as you start developing a relationship and there's trust there, start sharing a little and see what that person does with the information you give them. But also, something else that we have to understand is, just the way that we learn how to love by how we were loved, it's very normal, and people don't really ascribe to this because they don't believe that love should be mechanical, but it's very normal that you teach people how to love you. So it's okay to say, I'm about to share something with you that's a bit sensitive, and this is the response I would like from you. Especially if when you have tried it in the past, you haven't quite liked the response. So a good example is a bit of a stereotypical one, but it's one that people are quite aware of. A woman comes home, she's venting. This happened, this da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And the man is like, oh, maybe she needs my help. And he says, why didn't you do this instead? And then she snaps. I'm not telling you because I want you to fix it. I'm telling you because I need to share my day with you. I just want you to listen. Yeah? So it's okay to teach people how to take the information that you're giving them in terms of vulnerability, but test things out. If you give a little and you like the way they respond, then you give a bit more, you give a bit more.
Okay, thank you. That's also a function of time, I guess. You need time. Mrs. Aoshika, please.
The only thing I will add to what Toby has said is, look, some things are critical and must be disclosed. Oh, I have a child before. In fact, you should disclose it on day one. You know, and somebody say, oh, I love you. I like you. So say, oh, yeah, that's true. Well, but, you know, I'm usually busy because I have to take care of my daughter. You find a way to put it on the table. The one that will not stay, you won't get a phone call the next day. Good riddance to bad rubbish. So you must decide the things that are concrete in your life, that are non-negotiable, and you put them on the table. But obviously, you must understand the wisdom. But there are things that will come with time. You cannot meet someone today and say, I need to tell you my entire life history. It's not possible. It will come natural, which is what courtship is about. So over the period of courtship, different parts of your life will be revealed. Things will lead to you that you say, oh, as a matter of fact, you know, this is this. Or you go out, you meet someone, and you go later you can say to the person, you know, I actually know that person before, and this is how. This is what happened and all of that. You have to, because you do not want to get embarrassed. But you must pace yourself. But there's some things that you put on the table. There's no story. You don't go and say, oh, you know what my bank balance is? I beg. You know, I earn this much. You don't know what will happen. We had a live series last Saturday for men only. One guy asked me some amazing question there. And he said, please, can you tell me how to love women that are tall? He's not talking about height. He was talking about women who are ambitious, well-driven, and are richer than a lot of guys now. That guys are challenged. They don't know how to. He said, what else can you put on the table that will compensate for the fact that you don't have as much money as the girl, that allows you to still be able to love her? This was a concrete conversation because it's a real issue right now. So, and it's about girls also understanding that it's not about how tall a guy is financially. It's about the man that he is. And what kind of conversations do you have? Are you going to ask him on day one, how much is your salary? No. But you're going to see how he behaves. If the guy takes you out and he's waiting for you to pay the bills, then you know this one came to spend your money. He's a sponge. So you go off. You know, those kind of things, yes.
Okay, so, and I guess the reason I asked that question is because I know women have been so traumatized by a relationship, they almost want to get out, they want to get out of the way so that they feel like they're not wasting their time. Dr. Toby, so there's another issue which we don't often talk about. You discover that a lot of relationships end up where people have had historic emotional or even mental health challenges. These don't have to do with finance, whether you had a child before. Some issues that you may not even discover until you're married, even after dating and courting for 3 years. And often in Christendom, it's, there's a lot of prayer and spirituality that goes with these things. But how do you even coach and begin to advise, say, a woman who, for instance, discovers that her husband has had some deep-seated emotional or mental health challenges? And with pride and men and egos, it can be a very fine line.
Just quickly, go and see a therapist. Go do couples counseling. And the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of times we have the expectation that our partners should be our be-all. They should be our therapists. They should be the parents of our children. They should be able to be great in sex. They should do everything. But that's not possible, because nobody has all the skills. So if you find that your partner has deep-seated traumatic issues, emotional issues that they're dealing with, that is getting in the way that you flow in a relationship, I know it's not the norm, but seek help. You might not be able to go to a therapist. You might have somebody in church that's trained counselor. Seek help. And the reason why is because you need someone that is objective, that can ask the questions that when they ask it, wouldn't bring up the defenses of your partner. When you ask it, it's seen as an attack. And so automatically, they go into defense mode. When you are defensive, you cannot be vulnerable. So you need someone that is objective, that doesn't have any stakes in you or him, that can help these situations come out and help both of you work through that. So go see someone, a therapist, but if a therapist is not available, go see a pastoral counselor or your pastor or someone that can be objective. And I'm sticking to this because a lot of times people advise you on their experience if they're not trained, and their experience might not be your experience. So you need to find someone that is trained and can be objective.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Awishika, there's a question I want to ask you about the relationship between daughters and their fathers and how that ultimately influences how women approach their relationships and the energy they also give up to their spouses or future spouses. If you're a woman who grew up without a dad and you're really struggling to kind of connote the idea of a man loving you, where do you even begin? And how have you seen it manifest, maybe in the lives of people that you've counseled or you've advised or experiences around you?
Okay, so the tendency is girls that haven't had the security of a father's love don't trust people. They don't tend to trust men. Because it means if they don't have that security, they've had another kind of experience. And that experience manifests itself in different ways. And unconsciously sometimes, and this is Toby's field, they're looking for the kind of relationship they grew up in. If it's a good father, girls are looking for their fathers in their husbands. If it's a bad father, in fact, I listened to a girl in the last 1 week. And what did she say? That the guy that she was going out with loved her so much that she used to think something was wrong with him because the only way she understood love was abuse. And therefore, if he was acting, she didn't trust the genuineness of his love because the only way she understood love between a man and a woman was through an abusive relationship. And we tend not to understand the subconscious nurturing that we get, from even the wrong relationship. So how can we help people like that? First and foremost, a lot of patience. When a woman like that, if she finds love, it would be a man who loves her enough to stand with her, to help her until she gets to the place of trust. And you will also know that it would be a traumatic relationship because you will keep having to respond to her insecurities or her fears. But I have watched men who love enough to stand with the woman through those seasons until she gets to a place of trust. And this is where churches are powerful because it's an emotional hurt and a wound. And it can really largely get healed by nurturing and prayers. And when that happens, and a lot of patience, because it doesn't happen overnight. When that happens over time and there's support, you will find the husband is protective of that woman even from his own family. despite her tendencies. But if you understand the foundation of somebody's problem, you can make room for it and see where they're coming from and then support them through. It takes God and it takes a support system. And that support system is either from home or from relationship, friends, and family. But it's a long journey.
Yeah, indeed. And I think part of it, a round of applause for her. And just listening to you, I think part of it is actually being able to have that conversation with your prospective partner up front. Because that could be an area of receiving love that you struggle with. Now, there's an aspect of relationships we haven't really focused on, which is other female relationships. Because this is love and relationships, how we love. It also manifests and shows up in our sisters, in the way we approach our female relationships. To what extent is our emotional well-being as women also really dependent on how we love our shown love by our sisters? I just want you to share a bit of light on that dynamic, how it actually influences people in their choices.
Auntie spoke to this already, but that love is the core. The way that your emotional health influences the way that you see the world, the way that you navigate, the way that you form bonds, the way you respond to conflicts when it shows up, even in your sisterhood or your friends or your siblings. It navigates everything about your meaning-making process. So if there's that kind of emotional unwellness or difficulty, it will definitely sip through those friendships. But talking about friendships, I'm glad you brought this up. The friends you have around you are so important. Because what tends to happen is when you're in a unit with someone and things happen, you seek out those friends to validate your perspective or to give you a different perspective than the one that you have. And for most of us, when we are fighting with our partners, and we do this unconsciously, but they become the enemy. They're not supposed to be, but they become the enemy. So we don't trust their perspective anymore. So we go outside of our romantic relationship to get a different perspective. Now, if your friends are there telling you, he did this, leave him. If your friends cannot tell you the truth, a good sign, if you're always right when you talk to your friend about issues in your marriage, run from that friend. Because you can never always be right. It's impossible. So the friendships that you have around you are so important. Having people that you can be vulnerable with, that can also be vulnerable with you. And one of the practices that we talked about today about opening up about your imperfection and can tell you sensitively when you are wrong. Not as a way to gloat, hey, you that are always doing Mrs. Good News, now you're wrong. But as a way to steer you in the right direction is so important. So your friendships, your sisterhood, it's key. And the way that you love as well is key, because in that love relationship, you have to be able to be open, to be vulnerable with each other.
Thank you. Mrs. Awashika, please.
Okay, so what I want to add, just taking from where she stopped, is this. And I'll give you a practical guide. At this point in your life, let's draw the line. Do an evaluation. I always say, audit your friends. Audit the people you call your friends. Determine who they are to you, what value they bring to the table, what they represent, what kind of voices do they represent in your life. Why is that important? That you audit your friends before the moment that you need them. If you haven't audited your friends and identified their perspective, their position, their values, the things they consider important, when you have a problem, you will take the wrong problem to the wrong friend. And they'll give you the wrong counsel that will lead you into trouble. I'm not saying don't keep your primary school, your secondary school, whatever level of friends you have. But don't be blind to who each person is. A girl that's a runs girl might still be your friend for whatever reason. However, you know that there are things you can't discuss with her. A woman who does not have respect for her husband and doesn't respect men generally, she's money and everything about, is not the one you're going to talk to about your husband. Because the counsel she will give you is not the right one. The one that doesn't believe in God, but she's your friend from past, is not the one you're talking about your spiritual challenge. Why? She has no capacity. to walk you through and encourage you and support you through. Your friend who hasn't stayed in a job sustainably for some time is not the one you take your career challenges to. Your friend that doesn't mind sleeping with a man to make money is not the one you go and tell that my boss wants to sleep with me, even though he has promised me promotion. She will encourage you. Why? Because for her, it's nothing. So audit your friends. Determine who they are. Determine what they bring to the table. Determine how they will play in your life. What you will go to them for, what you will never go to them for. So that when you get into a situation where you are incapacitated, you're not confused as to what voices you have given the power to influence your life. It would help you because in that moment, you're going to depend on your friends. But the kind of friends you have and who they are and the situation at hand will determine what you get out of that situation. It's not what you do on the spot. It's what you do in advance. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well said. Round of applause for them. I'm conscious of time, so I want us to now take questions for the floor. And I would say, because Mrs. Aoshika needs to leave almost immediately, if we can direct maybe the first couple of questions for her, and then we can move. I think the usher, okay, thank you very much. We already have questions here. Wow, okay. Okay, so maybe I'll direct the first question to you, ma'am. This is a question from somebody online. Thanks for the great wisdom. The question is, how does this apply to those who have made a mistake in marriage and divorce because we know we chose the wrong spouse based on adultery and abandonment? Are we permitted another chance, and can we still apply the same principles for a new relationship? Well, this is a combination of a doctrinal issue and, so Mrs. Aoshika.
If you're already divorced, you're divorced. There's nothing anybody, except if you want to remarry yourselves. But that's a different scenario. However, one of the wisdom of life is we learn from our mistakes and from our past. So what are your learnings from there? Everything we've said today is applicable to how you move forward. It's about how you now think of your life. It's about making sure that you don't repeat. You can make a mistake once, but if you make it twice, you're a fool. So you need to judge that situation, be wiser, be more patient, be more gentle with making choices, and also have a wider perspective as to how you decide who you are. So I think, yes, it does work, no matter what relationship.
Okay, thank you. And I have to say, I'm a living witness that your life, you can start all over again. Those who know my story, but that's a discussion for another day. This question is for those of us already married, seeing that we are discussing love and relationship. I'm in a marriage where I'm the breadwinner. My husband used to be in the working class, but due to certain circumstances, the bread bringing is now on my table. I am the sole financial provider. He's a loving husband and is not threatened by my success or that I provide for the house. But I still struggle on how to handle the relationship such that I don't make him feel I am high-handed or critical. Kindly advise on how I can manage his emotions and still remain my true self without making him feel I'm looking down on him.
Okay. So there's a lot, in this kind of situation, there's a lot to do with historical, which means how have you always behaved in that house, in that situation before the switch of the situation. Because what he will be looking for is a difference. If he was the provider before and there's a way you carried him, and now that he's not, if you change the way you behave, yes, you will make him sensitive about it. Because let me tell you, the most critical thing about a man is what? What does he want? Respect. A man wants to be respected. So, and respecting a man, and we're talking biblically, the order in a home makes the man the head of the home. The balance sheet or the balance in your bank account does not affect the order. Let's be clear. Which is why you have to choose the husband right. So whether you have more money or you don't, the head of the home is still the head of the home. And if you have more money, then what becomes critical? Attitude. Is how you then handle the situation of having more. You might want to give your husband, he needs money, he doesn't have money. Don't wait for him to come and beg you or ask you for it. You can just put money beside the bedside table and he knows the money is there for him. You have shown him honor and respect. You can move money to his account without saying one word because you want him to have the liberty to do things. If you're the one paying your children's school fees and he used to pay, you don't pay. Give him the money, let him pay. Why? You're trying to maintain the order in your house and maintain his respect with his children. If there's a time to honor him more than at any time, is in that season. Why? Because he's not just vulnerable to you, he's vulnerable to people outside that are looking inside, who are looking for excuses to tell him, your wife has spoke to you like that just because you don't have money. In-laws, neighbors, his friends. He's dealing with that as well. So you need to help your husband to help yourself by creating an environment where he's confident, he's comfortable, he's respected. Even if he upsets you, that normally you would respond to. In that season, please don't. You know what? If you're upset with your husband, I have a rule. I will never speak if there's a third party there. If my husband upsets me, a third person is not going to be there. I will walk away. I can go to the toilet and bury my voice. I can even scream in the toilet. It's nobody's business. When it's just the two of us, even if you disrespect the man, nobody knows. It's between you. Because how do people feel embarrassed about disrespect? It's because of how you make other people see them. So when you are in that situation of financial, it's delicate. It's also why you must be careful when you want to marry a guy that you know naturally you're going to be financially stronger than. You have to be sure the man is strong enough in his character and in his nature to handle it. Sometimes it's not the woman. Sometimes it's the man and his inability to handle the fact that you have that independence and he reacts. So a lot of care, a lot of attention, a lot of respect, a lot of playing to win. Because you know what is your game. You want to keep peace in your home. What is your game? You want your husband to be comfortable and not feel. So help him through that season. And it's okay. Whatever happens. The way I look at money, don't ever make money rule in your home. Make it a tool in your home. And how do you make it a tool? It serves your purpose. It doesn't matter whether it comes from A or B. Because the Bible says 1 + 1 is what? Is 1. God can choose to give money through any hand to test the heart of each of you. But if the man is responsible, you know when he had, he put. So if he doesn't have now, maybe for better. So if it's you that loses your job, would you expect your husband not to be able to support you? So it's the same. You have to give the same. We keep saying his money is our money and my money is what? That's not biblical. It's not. It's old women's tale. It's a cultural perspective that women have, and it's some kind of women. So just think about that and remove that problem from your home.
Thank you, Ma. Awesome, awesome. And I guess I would also add that, the unsolicited financial support you do provide in difficult seasons, you also have to know the type of man
yes.
that you're with. Because sending an alert, some men could react to it and say, are you trying to say, so you also have to study the character of the person that you're with. Awesome stuff. Toby, there's a question. And Mr. Oshika, I know you have to leave. Yes, yes, you're free to leave. Thank you. I know she has to be somewhere by 1:30. Yeah. Thank you.
I apologize. It's really my fault. I mixed up my
much,
diary and I've been running a program since 9 o'clock in the morning that finishes at 7. So I flew from VIA and I'm flying right back to continue and finish. Forgive me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. We're grateful. Thank you, Ma. And she's a mother in the house, so you get to see her round the clock, right? So any questions you don't get to ask, I'm sure you can catch a one-on-one sometime. Thank you so much. That's been so awesome. So, Toby, let's continue with you. I have a question here from someone who says, how do you really deal with scars from childhood memories in your adult life and relationships?
The simple answer is just self-awareness. We just have to be aware of ourselves. That's really what it boils down to, the way that you act in situations, being curious about things. Why did I do that the way I did? And also to have people around you that you can trust, because one thing we say about therapy, which is true for any situation or any relationship that we have, is that a therapist is not wiser than you. It's just you're on two mountains. You're on one mountain and they're on another mountain. So they can see your mountain better than you can because you're standing on the mountain. So that's why they can say, oh, have you thought about this or have you tried this? So it's the same for friendships. It's the same for your support system. So it's important that you have people around you as well that you can be open to, that can see things and say, hey, I noticed you did this or you did that. What's going on here? So being curious, being aware of yourself, being open to feedback about things. And obviously, with psychologists, so therapy, if you can, will always be a way to deal with
Indeed.
emotional scars.
Go ahead and plug those services.
No,
but there's a follow-up question I had, sometimes you're not aware that you had scars. So you're going through certain things. You're not aware that somebody abused you. You may not, things may have happened when you were 1 or 2, right? And some of these things are spiritual, so they have a long-lasting impact. So if you start to recognize patterns, it may not even be in marriage, it may be in your female relationships. You often hear people say, it could have been something that happened in your childhood. It could have been something. Can therapy actually transport you back? You hear those stories that maybe you suddenly remember a memory that was locked away. Can you get that kind of breakthrough in therapy if you didn't know that you even had scars to begin with?
Yes, because even though you might not be aware that you have scars, what we know is that you start recognizing things because of the conflicts you encounter in your life. When you start hitting brick walls in your life, you're trying to do things, but things are just not happening the way you want, or you notice there are repetitive patterns happening time and time again. That is really what gets people to stop and to reflect on what's going on. Otherwise, they don't have to. And that's because as human beings, one of the skills that we all have, because it's instinctual, is survival skills. We've all learned to survive. And so we don't stop to think about, is my survival working for me or not, until you hit a brick wall. And then all the things that you have done all the time just stop working. And so that's what therapy can come into. And it goes back to what I said to you when I was talking, which is, with therapy, we don't ask, why are you doing this? We ask, what has happened to you that has led to that? And when you start asking those kind of questions, the way that our minds are is like one memory triggers another, triggers another, triggers another, triggers another. And before you know it, you're opening up about things that you didn't even really know that you could remember. And one exercise we always do sometimes, we won't do it with patients, but it's one that can really buttress this point, is if you make a statement and I keep asking you, but why, but why, but why, you're forced to think and reflect, but why? Because we all have these rules. Some of you say, I'm just a morning person. Don't talk to me in the evening. I'm just not, or this is the way I do my things. Or once you cheat on me, it's a wrap. I will never forgive you. But why? Once you start asking those kind of questions, you get to the core of the memory of why. And it might be because I saw my parents go through that. And I did not like the way my mother didn't stand up for herself. So, but why is often a way that if you start peeling down the layers, and that's what therapy does, but obviously in a bit more skillful way, that can bring up those memories that we may not even recognize are scars.
Random question, do things like hypnosis work? And is that even to be found amongst Christians, just randomly?
As a psychologist, hypnosis is not an evidence-based approach, but people find solace in doing that. But as a Christian, I would not recommend that. Even as a psychologist, I would not recommend that, depending on what you're coming to meet me for.
Thank you, great stuff. There's a question here around a different type of relationship, mother-child. How do you love a mother who has decided to treat you as a nobody? I mean, it's a continuous act from her, but I do my best to be something. It seems I am growing hated for her. I'm not sure what that word is, but clearly, hatred, yeah, she's growing hatred for her. So this is in the context of her relationship with her mother.
I mean, first of all, that sounds like a very tough relationship. And I think Auntie said this, we're all taught to honor our parents, and we don't choose that relationship, but we have to make it work in some ways, and that can be very difficult. I think one of the most important thing about that is that you can have honor, but limit the expectations that you have in terms of what your mother might be capable to do. Especially when I don't know how old this person is, but especially as you grow older, our parents are growing older, so they become a lot more set in their ways. It's not an excuse, but trying to get your mother to love you in a way that you think you're going to be loved can often lead to disappointment. So you can still show honor, but limit that expectation that love will be given to you in a particular way or a way that you want it to be. I'm not sure if I heard in the question that there is abuse.
Sort of emotional or maybe even verbal abuse, because it says decided to treat you as a nobody.
Yeah.
So we're not sure what that exactly means,
Yeah.
but it could be emotional, verbal, it could be just rejection or abandonment. Yeah.
And I'm about to say something which there needs to be distance. You have to have distance in that relationship. And that's because if you don't have distance, what's going to happen is that you're continuously putting yourself in a position to be pushed down, your self-esteem, your worth. And remember what we said, your parents are the ones that lead to the template that you have. And so this will then begin to show up in different relationships. So it's important that you have that distance, limit the expectation, but still find ways to honor. And honor can be in your behavior, things that you do.
Absolutely. I've even discovered sometimes our parents, maybe even not this extreme, sometimes we have to love them from a distance, especially if we get triggered by certain things. It's actually really for our own good. The question here is, in a situation where betrayal broke the relationship, you've forgiven, but you decide to move on, is this okay? Now, the person doesn't say whether it's a marriage or it's dating or courtship, but can you please respond to that?
There's no one-size rule to that, and that's the truth. It's a relationship by relationship basis. And so one of the things, I'm smiling because I really love this lady called Esther Perel. So anytime I have an opportunity to quote her, I get happy. But one of the things that she says is that in our lifetime, we're going to have multiple relationships. The question is, do you have it with the same person or different people? So we all have to decide, based on the relationship that we have, if we're willing to do the work with that particular person. And doing the work might be coming back from a betrayal or mistrust or cheating. But both people are changed because of that, and as a result, the dynamics of the relationship will have to change. So you're not the same people that you were before the betrayal. But for some other people, they cannot have the same relationship with that person, and so they have to break it away. So there is no one-size-fits-all answer to that. It is context by context, given what has happened in that relationship.
So there's a question here around somebody whose motherhood was insulted. For those who are mothers, I have to say this can be a very sensitive issue because mothers sometimes are insecure. You question yourself, you question your mothering style. You question a lot, mom guilt. We don't know the context of this, but this person says, how do you forgive someone that insulted your motherhood? This same person finds it very easy to disrespect me. I can't avoid this person. She's family. Maybe it goes back to boundaries, right?
It definitely goes back to boundaries. And even the way that the question is written, insulted my motherhood. You can see that one was a tough one. That one really hit deep. And like we're saying, the interesting thing about that is that the person has said it and the person probably doesn't even remember. The person has gone on. They've said the thing, they dropped it and they've gone. But you're there, you're like holding it. You're like, this person insulted my motherhood. And honestly, it really goes down to boundaries. But something else that we talked about today, depending on how invested you are in that relationship, another avenue is communicating that you have been hurt. That's not something we like to do a lot. We tend to like to just keep it and move on. Just keep it, keep your boundaries, have your distance and move on. But if that relationship is important to you, it's important that you communicate that you have been hurt.
And also that means communicating, even in our non-romantic relationships. not all solutions may always be about distance, right? And I think sometimes just the ability to talk through issues can actually make the difference between with bridging the gap. Most of the other questions are similar, but I see a hand there in the audience, and I'm wondering whether we could please give her a mic just on this side of the room. There's a lady's hand here. Do you want to stand so they can see you for a mic?
Thank you so much. I'm trying to put myself together so I can ask you this question. So I'm a mental health therapist, right? So to give you a background story about myself so that you can advise on what you think I should do. So I was raped as a child at 8. I suffered domestic abuse in my previous marriage, and I'm currently happily married, But even though I have tried all the mental health therapy that I know by the books, I still have flashbacks that are currently affecting me in my marriage. My husband is very, very supportive. And one of the major flashbacks I have is nightmares on what has happened. And unfortunately, from the rape incidents to the domestic violence I suffered in my previous marriage, and it has resulted to so many things. It has resulted to me having insomnia. I've had to slip into depression. And 2 months ago, I attempted suicide because it was as though I'm trying. So I see clients, people come to me for mental health therapy, and they get results, they get testimonials, but I use the same thing on myself, and it's not working. So I don't know why I had this boldness to talk to you openly, to tell you how vulnerable I am, and to see if there's any other thing I have not done that can help me. Thank you.
Fantastic. First of all, can I just celebrate you for having the courage and the boldness to stand up and ask that question. God bless you. So Dr. Toby, very quickly.
I'm just mindful people are coming in. If you have a couple of minutes after this, can we speak one-on-one and we can talk a bit more about it?
Fantastic, ladies. It's been awesome. A round of applause for Dr. Toby and, of course, Mrs. Aoshika, who couldn't stay with us for so long.